Yeah, I know. So yeah, that whole thing's kind of taken me by surprise.
As a publisher, you've put out one of the books that you've done.
I did do a Kindle just by pure author repetition of asking. It's not as bad as I thought. I mean, it's not very rewarding to me. I mean, if I think of my future as just making electronic files, there's no way I would keep doing that. Granted, I don't know what else I would do, but I mean, just the thought of, well, I made another electronic file.
Yeah.
I mean, I just haven't started to think like that. I mean, everyone says you got to keep with the times and progress, and so I do try and do that. I mean, the challenges of any author or anybody doing anything is to always not get left behind to a certain extent. How can the newness merge with what you appreciate? And so I'm sort of trapped in that.
Zach mentioned sort of the economics of it. What has been your experience with the economics of ebooks? Do you see a better return from an ebook sale as you would a physical copy sale?
I haven't seen a return on a sale on it yet. But if it ever happens,
let's say if you sold one, if somebody actually bought an electronic copy.
I mean, I guess. I mean, of course, it's cheaper to sell them an ebook file for $8.99 than it is to sell them a book. I mean, I make more money that way.
Okay.
I don't, but that still doesn't excite me about it.
That's
I mean,
fine.
I'm just sort of, it's just hard for me. I guess I've lived my whole life with books.
Yeah.
And so I really am turning into the old guy now. Because, you know, in the old days we had full-size newspapers. And so for me to think of a life without books, I really can't even fathom it. I mean, so it's sort of an insult. It's not really an insult, but I still sort of feel like a lot of people have felt over time like change is coming, and I know this is my time when I have to figure it out, even though I don't want to.
Well, I think you're right that the digital rights management stuff, you know, the fact that you can't sell your Kindle books, or you can't you can't loan them out. Well, you can now loan them for 14 days, or and those sorts of things. Simon & Schuster has recently, you know, limited the number of times that they'll allow libraries to check out copies of their ebooks to like 26.
Interesting.
Before they have to repurchase it. And that is a concern. And I don't think that ebook advocates would necessarily say, well, that's just comes with the territory. And that is a concern for passing things down and passing on that knowledge.
Yeah, it's like,
but along with some of those trade-offs,
Uncle Jim's digital book collection. It's like great.
Sure. I mean, but along with some of those trade-offs, you have the ability to, you know, highlight things in your electronic book and share those with other people, which can sort of give us this new information about our cultural heritage.
Can I just start like a paranoid possibility?
Yes.
I think it's possible that I would sound like an end of the world person, but I know I've read this somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you transfer the file,
Sure.
and now I'm going to sound like I'm making stuff up, but I think that like Kindle or someone I can figure out your reading styles or what you reread or what you highlight through that. And so and whether that's true or not, let's just say it is, because I'm sure it will be at some point. But one of the cool things about a tangible book itself is the privacy of the act of reading. I mean, if I thought to myself for a second that someone is aware of what I'm reading, other than even purchase habits are a little bit invasive, but just knowing that we could be sitting in this room and I could be silently reading this book. No one knows that I'm reading it, but it seems the potential that someone else could know what you're reading. And that, I mean, depending on how much you believe that or how far you think that could go, that in its own right should give you cause to reconsider sharing your habit with somebody else, whereas it used to be a private act all on your own. Doomsday, I know.
But I mean, at the same time, you know, with an electronic book, yes, it makes it easier for, you know, your shadow government database to collect that information. But I mean, at the same time, if you're sitting there reading a book, I can see what's on the cover, and that makes a difference, right? I can tell that you're reading Mein Kampf if that's what you're reading, as opposed to something else.
I think one nice thing about, you know, for fair and balanced treatment of ebooks.
I'm not worried about fairness.
You know, the rural side of this. You know, when you think back about rural arts and letters, one of the big breakthroughs were rural free delivery of mail.
Yes.
A big thing for magazines and circulars to make their way out to country people. And I live in a town where the local library is not much larger than this room. When the local library is open maybe 2 to 3 to 4 hours most in the afternoon, and where the selection is very, very limited. Now, these are heroic places because they're operating on almost no funding. However, the folks who live in the country or in small towns, and that's a lot of people in Iowa, an ebook can be a godsend. Can free them up from charges that might be associated with interlibrary loan. A lot of people don't like the feeling of going to their small town librarian who they've grown up with, who's now aware of the very private things that they may need to read about that they don't want others to read. So there are some gains to be made, but again, Iowa's already facing in some ways, some scholars talk about food deserts. Right. And rural Iowa, many regions in rural Iowa are in danger of becoming a food desert. And if you do a quick search on Google for bookstores, you'll find that there are a number of areas, whole swaths of 60-mile radius that are essentially book deserts, where there is no bookstore that you can drop in on. And so that's something that the ebook phenomena has a chance both to worsen and to maybe ameliorate on the other hand. It's a tricky thing.
Right. I guess, I'll contradict myself, but I'm full of contradictions. But on the one hand, there'd be no need for an ebook if there hadn't been a need for an ebook. And so one thing leads to another. And so, there are uses for it. Definitely.
Well, I think this is something that we'll definitely end up revisiting.
We're going to trick every author
4
into
months.
this one.
We'll come back to this. So this has been called Tall Corn Book Show. Steve, did you have a clever thing you want to say?
Hey, until next time, keep your pages turning and your books well marked.
All right, thank you very much for joining us.